They didn't believe me, and then both of them saw me on TV dressed up as a luchador with a cape and all that stuff. So very fun. But to me, $1,000 was a lot of money at the time. But the opportunity comes from the fact that mobile home parks are valued based on the income that the lot rent produces, not the homes. It was a couple years ago. I had over 700 YouTube videos that are unlisted just for my internal team. Now there's AI tools that can really supercharge things. It's just documenting everything along the way so that you're ready when it's time to add someone to the team. Well, in a real estate specific business, I would say property management. And I'm not a plant. I'm not a paid actor by Evernest to tell everyone, man, property management is brutal.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Evernest Real Estate Investor Podcast. I am your host, Spencer Sutton, and I have my co-host with me, Adam Hobson. Adam, welcome back to the show, man.
Yes, sir. Pleasure as always.
All right, so we're back. This is the first time we've actually brought on a guest. We were setting up the studio, and I'm extremely excited to welcome this guest. We have Austin Hughes with us from Sutton Homes. He's coming to us live from Lubbock, Texas. Austin, welcome to the show, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I got to know a little bit about Austin back probably a couple months ago. We were both in Dallas at an Investor Fuel Mastermind meeting. And at Evernest, we're one of the sponsors of Investor Fuel. And so I was there just kind of getting to know people. I was in one of the breakout rooms when Austin was presenting, and he was just sharing about his business. And I thought, wow, this is really intriguing. I seem to think that maybe even Lubbock, Texas is a little bit like Birmingham, Alabama. Mm-hmm. That's just my opinion, but we're going to find out because I want to hear a little bit about the market. But before we get into that, Austin, you've got a really incredible story because you started this business 10 years ago when you were a senior at Texas Tech. And let me think,
That's right.
Texas Tech, is it the Raiders?
Yeah, the Red Raiders.
Red Raiders. Okay, good. Patrick Mahomes went to Texas Tech, I think. So pretty famous school. But you were a senior and you decided to start this real estate company. So why don't we dive in? You had about $1,000 to your name. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about your story? What sparked this idea and how did it get started?
Yeah, which the $1,000 was actually leftovers from what I won by hitting a half court shot at a Texas Tech basketball game.
Oh, really? Nice. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I was all over TV. I was calling my sister and my mom, and I was going crazy. I just won a trip to Vegas by hitting this shot. They didn't believe me, and then both of them saw me on TV dressed up as a luchador with a cape and all that stuff. So very fun. But to me, $1,000 was a lot of money at the time. So because I got it out of a half court shot, they paid me $2,500. Coming into my senior year at Tech, I had $1,000 and I was like, man, this is a lot of money. I should probably get a business going with it, which is hilarious. But I got started with limited resources without having family in real estate or anyone really to kind of point me in the direction to go or show me the way. So just started bootstrapping it and figuring things out from there during my senior year with the goal of, okay, I got to make it to the end of this year and have enough runway to not have to get a job. That was my first goal. I just want to be able to survive doing my own business, not have to get a job. And I guess I technically did that. Maybe I shouldn't have because I had zero money. I was still flat broke when I graduated, even though I had done some deals during that year and gotten things started. But nonetheless, I was able to make it happen.
Well, tell us about that first deal, because if you started when you were a senior, right? So you're thinking most seniors are looking to looking to get a job. They're, filling out applications. It didn't sound like that was the route you wanted to go. So what were those first few deals? Like, how did you know it was real estate?
Well, first I did two deals kind of simultaneously. The first check I got was from a mobile home sale. So I bought a mobile home for $3,000. And obviously I had to bring on a private lender because I only had $1,000. So um, bought a mobile home for 3 grand, put about 1,200 into renovations on it. It was very minor. And then sold it with owner financing. Got 3,000 back with the down payment, and then got $500 a month for 6 years it was. And so that was my first deal. So 3 months into it, I had received all the principal back, and then the rest was just profit for the rest of those 6 years. But yeah, that was my first deal. And getting started at that young of age, I would say the biggest benefit I had, it was multiple things, but the low cost of living. I see that as a huge friction for people that have more established lifestyles, families, things like that, to get into real estate or to get into really any business, because the minimum amount they have to make to maintain what they've already accumulated in terms of lifestyle expenses is usually way higher. But at the time I was paying myself $1,000 a month, and I was living off of that for the first, 2015, 16, 17, and 18. So the first 4 years, I paid myself almost nothing, just enough to survive. But that was a huge, huge benefit that I had that other people didn't, because I could invest more in the business. I could invest more in growth faster and not have to just keep sucking resources out of the company.
Well, Austin, if you don't mind, can we back up for 1 second? So, you mentioned a lot of people we talked about on this podcast before get started in wholesaling, and they maybe have some kind of real estate background. I got started in wholesaling because I didn't have any money, and I was broke and needed to make some quick cash. How did you hear about real estate? Like, was this mobile home? Was it land? Was it in a park? I love the owner financing. That's, my ears perked up when you said that. I love that strategy. Mm-hmm. But how did you kind of get into it? Did you read any kind of books that led you into real estate, or were you like, hey, a lot of people are millionaires in real estate, let me do this thing,
Well, yeah, it was kind of the latter, just knowing that a lot of wealthy people invest in real estate. And so when I started researching it, I was just wanting a skill that I could have whenever I was 40, 50 and had some money to invest. I actually didn't think real estate was going to be my company, but I came across different creative strategies. I came across wholesaling, but that was a lesser focus of mine at the beginning, although it should have been probably the main focus. But yeah, so I was really just trying to grow some skills that I could use later in life, because full transparency, I love Texas Tech, but I didn't really feel like I was on a path that was truly going to benefit my life by getting a degree. It was just going to be punch the clock, get the 4 years, get the paper, and then what? And so I wanted to have some kind of skill that I could use to build wealth in the future. So I started studying real estate, and then, of course, figured out how I could get it started.
And I guess flipping was the first. I'm sorry to cut you off. Flipping was the first thing that you were kind of looking into, and then you found this mobile home, I guess, because of the cost of entry. And then did you? Was this in a park? Was this a separate piece of land? How'd you find this deal? Like, how'd you find the private lender? Kind of, if you don't mind, kind of going over that.
Yeah, it was in someone else's mobile home park, and there's a big opportunity with investing inside of other people's parks. I did that for, obviously, that first deal. I did a pretty good handful of mobile homes inside other people's parks, and then I started buying my own mobile home parks. But the opportunity comes from the fact that mobile home parks are valued based on the income that the lot rent produces, not the homes. So a lot of owners, depending on the style that they use to run their parks, they don't really care too much about the homes. They just care that that space is paying them lot rent, because that's what contributes to the overall value of the park. So a lot of times you can go in there and they'll give you homes for really cheap, like this one. This was a nice home. It was worth way more than that because with minor repairs, I sold it for $30,000 with the owner financing.
Mm-hmm.
But and it takes the headache off their hands if you'll come in and just do all that work. A lot of mobile home park operators aren't set up to continuously remodel individual mobile homes. A lot of them own across the nation, across different states. And so they just want it to be as passive as possible and just focus on the lot rents. So if someone wants to come in and get deals for really cheap or bootstrap, or a lot of times you can even get them for free. They'll just give you the home for free if you'll start paying lot rent to them. Then, you can start to accumulate either some owner finance notes or some rentals that way.
Okay, nice. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I think, and going back to your previous point, I think this is a really important point. If you're listening to this and you're considering real estate, yeah, you may not be in a position where you can live on $1,000 a month, like Austin, you were. I mean, and you said it, that keeps a lot of people from getting into real estate. I remember, like when I started wholesaling, but I still needed money to live on, and so I just all I needed to do was go and secure $5,000 a month. I remember I was like, if I can bring in $5,000 a month, that's what I'll do. So I borrowed. I had put all my money into buying this HomeVestor franchise. I put all my money into a couple of restaurants that we owned at the same time. And then, so I had to go borrow my first $5,000. I went and borrowed the first $5,000 and then thought, if I can just wholesale enough deals to then cash flow, then that's what I did. But I think that's a great point. Like if you're young, your goal should not be to like have massive amount of expenses, because that can keep you from doing something like what you're talking about. So you did this for several years. You lived on next to nothing as you were building your business. So how did that look? How did building your business look? Because now I think you have somewhere around 200 rental units, and I'm guessing that's single family residential, mobile homes. There's probably all kind of different things in there. So how did you, what was that journey like scaling? Because growing from 1 to 200 is a pretty impressive feat.
Yeah. Now it's over 500, but scaling that, I mean, it's a lot of stuff. It's everything, right? And y'all would understand this very well at Evernest, being at the scale that you operate on. Even from someone with my vantage point, I might see things in a certain way, but when you go up into the tens of thousands of units, all of a sudden you're looking at things, you're approaching things differently. And so it's kind of the same with the level that I've grown to, is that a lot of people think about the situation from a small operator perspective of just owning a handful of houses, or having a business where it's just them and maybe their spouse, or them and a partner, small businesses. And so getting up to the size that I'm at, 500 units, working on an average of about 20 remodels at a time. It's just a lot of everything. It's so along the way growing, figuring out how to do it in the first place. And then once I figure out how to do it, testing it again, right? Making sure that it actually works with this variable. And then the third time I go through something is documenting everything I can. And so it's doing that in small chunks along the way, and then starting to accumulate how-to videos and process documents and multiple things that I can then turn into a training. And I can package these trainings up in similar areas and turn that into a position and hire for it. And so it's just the accumulation of doing that while doing the work along the way, so that whenever I'm blazing a trail for something, that someone can follow in my footsteps later, because I've documented it and I've shown them how I'm doing it as I go. And so it's just a bunch of problem solving, doing different things, and then to break through the size that a lot of people stay at is just documenting everything along the way so that you're ready when it's time to add someone to the team.
Yeah, I think that's a really great insight, because when you first get started, all you need to be is a really good technician or operator, right? You're doing everything. You're buying the houses, you're selling the houses, you're dispo, you're doing everything. And then when you start owning rentals, at least this is what it was for me, I just was also the property manager for my rentals. So I was doing all the management, everything. But then as you begin to scale and begin to grow, you have to go from that operator to a manager. And a manager is, you're managing processes, you're building processes like what you're talking about. And so I just remember in the early days when Matthew was managing property, he would then start writing the process down so that he could do exactly what you're talking about, give it to somebody else and say, hey, if you can do this, then great. And this is why most companies, especially most property management companies, don't grow beyond 200, 250 doors. It's because it's extremely difficult to scale. It's extremely difficult to build the processes that can be repeated over and over and over again without you being in the business. So what are the biggest challenges? I mean, because I had it wrong. I had you at 200 doors, but you're saying you're at 500. So I apologize for that. But what's been the biggest challenges of getting to 500? Because I can tell you, at our size, there's been so much pain along the way. It's never easy. It's not ever been easy. I don't remember, and it's really like plateau to plateau. We always thought it was going to be straight up and to the right, and we were like, oh, this is going to be awesome. No, bull. You get into some pits, you plateau, you struggle, it's painful, you have people problems. Anyway, I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on that.
And Austin, I'm sorry to interject real fast. Would you mind telling us these 500 units or more? Could you tell, is this a mix of like, do you count every door like in a mobile home park, or what's kind of the breakdown of these units? Are they all single family homes? And then I didn't mean to interrupt you there,
no, you're
Spencer.
Good. You're good.
Yeah, so our portfolio is about a third single family, a third small multifamily, and then a third mobile home parks.
Okay, gotcha.
And some of those mobile home parks, probably about 100 of those units need to be filled. They're just vacant lots that we're moving homes into. So, yeah, but it's about a third of each of those asset types.
Okay, awesome.
So what about your struggles, man? What's the biggest challenge of scaling?
Well, in a real estate specific business, I would say property management. And I'm not a plant. I'm not a paid actor by Evernest to tell everyone property management is brutal. So just let them do it. But that's seriously it. I actually got thrust into it. My first ever rental, this was in 2016. I was still in college, hadn't graduated yet. It was a 12-unit apartment. And I had a partner on that one, and my first 4 rentals I had a partner on. And so we were getting into this, and we were maybe a week away from closing. This other investor in town and his wife were going to manage it for us, and they had done well with their own portfolio, so they were going to manage it. A week before closing, they backed out on us, so I got thrust into property management. But for a real estate specific business, I would say if you're going to build a rental portfolio, property management is by far the most challenging and the most important thing. Because challenging, because here's how I see property management, and here's why I think it's one of the most difficult positions to hire for. Is that if you look at what just an individual property manager does, all the elements of the job, you've got sales, they've got to do leasing, sales, they've got to do marketing, they've got to get marketing out there, they've got to do accounting, bookkeeping, all the expenses logged, all the rent logged, they've got to be very, very organized. They've got to have great leadership skills, because typically a property manager is not doing everything themselves. They're coordinating with maintenance, with leasing, with admin, all these different people. They've got to have great customer service, because you've got lots of customers, lots of tenants who love to complain. And the list goes on and on with all the skills. But if you look at those skill set combined, it's like, if someone can do everything that a great property manager could do, they could probably be a COO of a company, running an entire company and earning way more than property managers earn. I feel that property managers kind of have to just love it. And that's what I've found with a lot of them that are really good. They just have a passion for it. And maybe someone in their family did it growing up and they saw it and they kind of, they held it up on a pedestal, but that's what I found. So that's one of the biggest challenges in finding a good property manager. I don't know if you've got the same experience, Spencer. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I rarely meet anybody who, like when they were growing up, just was like dreaming of being a property manager. Like nobody, in my opinion. I mean, unless like you're talking about, it was part of a family tradition, something
I've met
they
a few
always
with
did. Yeah,
with families.
that's right.
They'd follow their family around. They were always at properties, and that was the thing that they wanted to do.
I have found that the best property managers are the people who can grind away. They don't mind dealing with problems, solving problems, and they don't mind grinding day in and day out. So some people's personality is built for that. Other people's personality is built for the deal. Like people are deal junkies. They love getting deals, wholesaling, flipping, whatever the case is. So it does take a special person, and you're right. Like, so one of our things at Evernest is we love to see our people develop and become great leaders. Like we just promoted a guy here. He's in our Denver office. We promoted him to VP of all property management, and Reese started in property management. And Reese has come up through the ranks and he's developed personally and professionally. And the guy is phenomenal. And now he's leading our entire company, 20,000 doors. He's the VP of all property management. And so, but yeah, there are some people that are just fit for being the property manager. They love being the technician and waking up and doing it every day. I just think they're rare. And you don't find them, and it's a very, very tough business. And no, you weren't a plant. This is not a plug for Evernest at all. I mean, listen, I managed my own rental property for several years until I gave it over to. I became a client of Evernest. I turned all my properties over because it became too much for me, and I didn't want to do it. I was traveling internationally, and I said I don't want to do it anymore. So,
yeah, so that's absolutely the hardest part, but also the most important part. A lot of people look at the hypothetical of if you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently? That's something that when people want to come pick your brain, that's one of the questions they ask. That comes with the pick your brain starter kit.
The coffee at Starbucks or whatever. The pick your brain.
So they're going to buy you a $5 coffee. They're going to ask you if you had to start all over again or if you were in my exact situation. But anyways, if I were to answer that question, what I would do is I wanted to go so fast. And actually, I used to think of slowing down. Like I would hear my competitors slowing down in their home buying. And I'd be like, that's crazy. Why are you slowing down? But what I would have done differently if I could start over again is I would have put a much greater focus on becoming excellent at property management. Or at least really good if I couldn't become excellent, but becoming really good at it, which would have slowed me down for a time period, but then it actually would have accelerated my growth because as you're scaling, if your property performance isn't keeping up and you're just adding new deal after new deal, and then you'll find you get a little bit of creep of vacancy, a little bit of creep of issues at your properties. So if I could do it all over again, I would just have very dialed in property management all along the way. If I saw that we were lacking in any of the areas there, I would slow down the buying, fix what we need to fix, stabilize everything, and then grow more methodically, which would have been more of an exponential curve, slower at first, faster afterwards.
Yeah. Essentially laying the foundation before you start building on it. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Austin, you did say something I think earlier that I liked. I think you said that you would personally do things 1, 2, maybe on the third time you would go through the whole process yourself. Is that correct? And then you would kind of write down all of the steps. I see tons of people, especially in the wholesale world, that they get started, they've maybe done one deal, and then they start hiring all these people, and they couldn't tell you what a title commitment looks like. They couldn't tell you. And I'm like, you're just setting yourself up for failure. So I think that's really good that you went through everything yourself, because I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this myself to make sure, A, I know it's going smoothly when somebody else does it, and two, if somebody's trying to take advantage or whatever, I know what's going to happen, the good things and the bad things. But selfishly, I'm interested in your systemization here. What type of, did you use any kind of software? Or are you just recording yourself, recording your screen, doing all that? Like, how are you recording all this to send to either VAs or people you're hiring in your company?
Yeah, so I've used different softwares throughout the years. My central database is YouTube because you get unlimited free storage in YouTube. So I've got, I know it's way more. It's probably over 900, but when I actually went through all the pages and counted, it was a couple of years ago, I had over 700 YouTube videos that are unlisted just for my internal team. Now, some of that is you go through one iteration, a couple of years pass, the process changes, you record the same video over again. But that's a lot of training documentation. Now there's AI tools that can really supercharge things. Even if it's videos that you recorded in the past. Right now I use Loom, and they have their own transcription service. But even if it's old videos from the past, you can go onto YouTube and they'll transcribe them, pull that, feed it to ChatGPT and tell it, hey, turn this into a process for me. So if you're not someone that likes to go through and organize things and go step by step, but you can sit there and talk, you can be like, yeah, I'm not going to sit down in front of a computer and do all this, but let me just shoot a video and talk through my process. There are tools that can turn that into a document for you. Nice. And so for myself, I did that manually on most of them just because I have a high standard for organization in my company. So I wanted everything to be just so. But yeah, I'd record videos, and then I would pair the video with a Google Doc usually so that someone could watch it, but then they could also go back to just a checklist, a process to see it if they need to refer back to it.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually used Notion for a long time. We had a Google Doc, then we had we built some pages, an internal website, kind of like a company wiki page or whatever. And then we started using Notion, and we just switched from Notion because we were spending, I don't know, $10,000 a month on Notion, and we weren't using all the features. So we just switched to Basecamp. But it's just a process. But that's exactly what we would do. We would, you could record a video, you could record a process and just put it in there, and it's easy for somebody to go. And then what you do is you start telling your people, when they start asking you questions, you say, go look at Notion. You're trying to teach them how to fish. And if it needs to be updated, update it. Like, you can update the process if something changes. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the toughest things. You really have to stay on top of the processes, because if you're a good operator, you just kind of start doing things randomly and just kind of like, that doesn't scale, because you have to teach somebody else exactly how to do it. And so if you're not on top of the processes, then it's chaos, because people are using all kind of different processes. It doesn't work.
And even if you don't have it super pretty or super perfect, document it, because data has just boomed in importance with all of the processing tools that there are. So the more stuff you can document, it's going to pay huge dividends, because the tools keep developing in their capabilities to where you can feed it even information that's not that polished or great, to where you might not be proud to share this as a training document to someone that you hire, but you just start feeding your documentation and processes to some of these tools. It's incredible what you can train AI to do even just now. Let alone what it'll grow to. So yeah, documentation is huge.
Yeah, I'm usually now I'm a done is better than good, but I'm so type A, and kind of like, it sounds like you, I want everything to be exactly right on this process, and I've had to get over some of that, just like, hey, get it down, and then later you can kind of refine it and make it better,
So talk a little bit about, because you mentioned having 20, I think you mentioned like 20 rehabs going at the same time or whatever. So do you have processes for that? Because that's kind of at scale from a flipping standpoint. Then you have processes for your property management. And then I'm guessing you have just like processes for almost every part of your business.
That's where the 700 videos also come from, is because I've got a diverse business.
Right.
I don't just do one thing. Some people would say I'm an entrepreneur. I got 4 businesses. It's like, well, no, you just do 4 different things inside your business, but that's kind of how it is. So yeah, now they interact and they overlap, the construction and the property management, as well as the sales side of it with acquisitions, marketing, dispositions, selling properties, all that stuff. It overlaps and my team communicates all the time. But yeah, they are pretty separate things. Funny enough, I think I'm kind of an anomaly with this, because most people say flipping is the bane of their existence. But at least the rehab process is very passive for me, my experience. And so I don't know how I was able to achieve that, and others aren't. But I would even say that up until this year, flipping was probably the most passive thing that we did, completing renovations. Now I would say wholesaling is about on par with it.
Why would you consider it passive? I'm just kind of curious. Like, just because
passive from my involvement,
from your involvement, right? You had the processes, you had the team in place, so it was just like, hey, it was being done.
We flipped, so many houses that I never saw. I never stepped foot in the house, yet they were done to our standards. We executed on them. The quality was there. They were sold. We hit the budget, the timeline, everything. The numbers all worked out. And so that just comes down to having the right processes in place for it, that where you're thinking of every little thing. A lot of people, when they think of, systematizing their business, there's always that thing in the back of their head that they're like, yeah, but this thing always has to come to me. Like, I have to make the decision on this. But it all just comes down to a sequence of decisions. Because here's the thing, no one is that special. And I recognize that. So I'm like, okay, so if I could figure it out, coming with no real mentor, starting from college, I had no experience in this. I just did self-study. I didn't have anyone telling me what to do, just read books, watched videos, right? And I figured it out. So if I could figure it out, that means there was a certain set of steps that I identified of, okay, this is how you flip a house, or this is how you do X, Y, Z. And I'm not special. So that means I just need to think hard and figure out what those things are, how that decision-making process works, so that I can train it to someone else. So even something as creative as changing the layout of a house, that's something a lot of people would never think that they could just delegate to someone else. Like, no, it's my design touch. I just have an eye for it. No, you can break that down. So there's certain things that we look for, like, okay, does the kitchen have an actual physical doorway going into it, meaning it's not open concept? If yes, find the wall by the living room and see if it's load bearing. Okay, if it's not load bearing, let's see if we can knock it down. If it is load bearing, let's see how important it is to knock it down, and we can add a beam across the top, right? And then we've got certain size of houses. So for this size of house, the capacity of the house is 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. For this size of house, typically you won't see more than 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. So we check the square footage of the house that we're looking at. Is there an opportunity potentially to add a bedroom or a bathroom to maximize the rent and maximize the value, right? That's something that a lot of people would never think to put down in a process, because they're like, no, I just see the opportunities. Converting garages to add square footage to increase the value. When does it make sense? When does it not make sense? You could break it down. It's all just a series of answering questions and following steps. And so all that stuff in the house flipping process has been systematized to where other people can make those decisions.
Do you find though that it's very, very important who you're hiring to make those decisions, because that's what we found. We found
Oh,
that
yeah.
we have to have
Oh, yeah.
the A players. If we hire A players, then guess what? They don't need to be tightly managed, and they can make those decisions. They can, like, we're always telling our people, own the outcome. And own the outcome is essentially you be the owner of your job, make it better, act like an entrepreneur, do your best to improve everything that's going on. Is that what you found? Is like, hey, if I hire the right people, then guess what? I don't even need to think about it anymore.
Absolutely. And funny enough, some of my best people have been project managers. So it
Yeah.
only makes sense that that's the department that's taken the least amount of my time. But I actually had that written down. I've been taking some notes as we've been talking. Owners, that exact word. That's so important. That's the other challenge alongside property management. But this is in any business, not just real estate, is getting people that can own their department, own their role, and own the process. Because if you got a bunch of great documented processes, but you don't have the right people that will follow them, and not only follow them, but problem solve, because they're not going to include every scenario, and own the results, that's how you reach the next level in business. So that is my current focus right now, is having that in each department. So as I've scaled, that's kind of been my limitation is, if you imagine someone that's spinning a bunch of plates and they got all these plates going, right? They got to keep them spinning. So when I'm over here looking at this plate, this one starts to get wobbly. I got to come back. And then by the time I'm back, this one's wobbly. So breaking through that, and that's just at the point of growth that I'm at right now, is breaking through that is getting one person per department that owns the results. And so that's what I'm putting all of my efforts into doing right now with my existing team, building them up, empowering them, and then bringing in new people that are the next wave that will take ownership. So, and that's been another consistent trend growing the business, is that, when someone leaves or when you feel you're outgrowing someone, it can be really scary, because especially as a small business, these people, you want them to succeed, you're invested in them. But then also it can be hard to imagine, am I going to be able to do this without them? What I've found at each step along the way is that things have just gotten better and better and better. Every time a position turns over, we're refining the role, we're improving it, we're looking at what we can do better with the next person, and we just have a clearer picture of exactly the type of person that we need in that role, and an even clearer picture of what they need to do to be successful, and even better processes. The next person is always better. I have not had a situation where I've gone backwards in a role. And so, but that also comes from personal growth. You gotta, never stop, always persist, and always look to keep growing too.
And how many people do you have on your team right now?
I've got 15 right now.
Okay, you got 15. And do you run your business through like an operating system? I'm thinking like Traction, EOS. Do you do that?
Yeah, we use that, and I've used that since the very beginning.
Yeah.
Read the book, said this makes sense, and implemented it.
Yeah. That's what we've used for all these years. It's been fantastic for us.
Yep,
Well, Austin,
it's great.
I'm sorry, if you don't mind. So I know along the lines of scaling, I'm assuming that you have through your processes, you have a minimum, like, hey, on this, on a flip, we want to make a minimum of $20,000, $40,000, whatever it is, to cover overhead and to make sure, and I know things happen. I know several local flippers here that sometimes they'll buy houses that they're not necessarily going to make a ton of money on, but they got to keep their guys busy, right? So like, I know for me in Birmingham right now, this year has been a challenge as far as marketing goes. It's a weird type of year and environment, and finding houses is a little more difficult. So all that to say, your marketing, like, do you have a marketing person, and are they doing the same thing? Because I'm assuming you have to market to scale, right? I mean, unless you're just been around so long that people know you're the home buying guy or the real estate guy.
We've always done some level of marketing. I would say right now is my lowest level of marketing I've ever done. ever. So in Investor Fuel, that is like the cream of the crop marketers for real estate, the group that Spencer and I are in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like the bottom of the barrel for marketing. But every time we go share our numbers, I'm doing lots of deals, and I just get a lot of referrals. So maybe Lubbock and Birmingham are the same in that sense, that we got over 300,000 people, but it's a very small community amongst real estate investors. And so I get tons of referrals, and then we get lots of cheap leads, cold calling, texting. We've got a lot on drip campaigns that we found through just dropping voicemails in the past. And so, and a lot of our deals this year have just been from follow-up from our database. I call that mining for gold in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, where's the gold? It's already in your backyard, AKA your database. So just go out there and find it. And so my team's been really focused on that the last few months. And so that's been a pretty good source, is just, hey, we got some really good prospects in here. Let's turn them into some deals.
Yeah, we always say around here the fortune is in the follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
Most people stop like after trying to call somebody 2 or 3 times, but we just say at least 10 times we're following up with people. We just are going to hammer them. We'd rather hear them say, never call me again, than to give up. We just always want to keep reaching out to them. And then drip campaigns are big for us as well. So Austin, as we wrap up, what's the future? I mean, you have a lot of things going on. As Adam has said, and I agree with him, it is a very strange real estate market. There's a lot of just weird stuff going on with the interest rates, but yet prices remaining high. Still a lot of demand out there. What do you see for the future? Like, what are you trying to do now? What are you focused on right now and in your business?
So our focus has been, it's shifted a little bit. I've pivoted in the last 3 years hundreds of times, not an exaggeration. I mean, what used to work doesn't work. This works for a little bit, and then it doesn't work. This kind of works, and then it doesn't, and just pivoting over and over. Where we have developed a really good groove right now is in working with people that don't live in Lubbock. So working with outside people that want to invest in a really affordable market, and then just doing deals with them. So you said I have 200 units. Maybe I'd like to get back to 200 units for a short time period, and then scale back up just to capitalize some of the equity that I've built in my portfolio. But yeah, we're working with people that that live outside of the area, sometimes outside of Texas, and we're just making deals. We're getting them some fully turnkey houses that they can invest in. We're making deals on some of our apartments. And so in some of the same ways that I acquired these properties with creative finance, seller financing, some zero down, others they'll get a bank loan for 80% and we'll finance back 20%. So they're basically zero out of pocket. So a lot of the same ways that I acquired properties, we're selling properties and working with other investors. So that's our next thing. That's the thing that we're currently focused on, is doing that, pulling out some equity from our portfolio, and then hitting the ground running with growth again.
Yeah. So essentially you're raising some cash and waiting on the next great deals for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I see great deals right now.
So if any of the listeners, like if people are listening right now and they're like, hey, I'd like to explore Lubbock, what's the best way for them to maybe reach out to you or somebody on your team and start talking about if they were looking to maybe buy some turnkey properties in your market?
Yeah. They're more than welcome to reach out to me. I don't have a fancy lead funnel set up, but they can email me. So Austin at thundersunhomes.com. And then I've got a team that works with these investors, and so I can get them connected to the right people. But yeah, that'd probably be the easiest way for now.
Awesome. Well, Austin, this has been fantastic, man. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise and all the lessons you've learned over the past 10 years. And we just want to wish you all of the best in the future. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully in California at our next Investor Fuel meeting.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for having me.
Yes, sir. We appreciate it.
All right, everybody. That's it for this episode of the Evernest Real Estate Investor. We will be back next week with a new episode. Thanks, everybody.